Have you ever looked at your bank account and asked yourself, where did all my money go? Not last year, not last month, but this week. The strange part is, you don't remember buying anything expensive. No luxury car, no designer watch, no dream vacation. Yet somehow, your money is gone. And here's the scary truth. Most people don't become poor because of one big mistake. They become poor because of hundreds of tiny decisions they never notice. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about a man who believed he needed to earn more money until one conversation changed the way he looked at money forever. Stay until the end, because the fifth rule is the one almost nobody follows, and it quietly decides who builds wealth and who spends their entire life chasing the next paycheck. Let's begin. Why this is important before we start, I want you to imagine something. What if someone secretly took $5 from your wallet every single day? You'd notice it. You'd be angry. You'd try to stop them. But here's the truth. Most people are doing exactly that to themselves. Not because they're careless, but because nobody ever taught them how small expenses become big problems. And if you don't understand this today, you'll probably work harder next year without becoming any richer. Story starts. The rain had just stopped. The streets were still wet. People hurried past, without looking at one another. Ethan walked into a small neighborhood cafe, not because he wanted coffee, because he wanted silence. He sat near the window, opened his banking app, and froze. Salary received only 6 days ago, current balance almost empty. He stared at the screen, trying to remember what he had spent his money on. Nothing expensive. Just coffee, a few online orders, fast food, streaming subscriptions, a pack of cigarettes, a few drinks with friends. It wasn't that much, he whispered. Then why? Was there almost nothing left? At the table beside him, an old man quietly closed his book. He looked at Ethan and smiled. You didn't lose your money. You leaked it. Ethan frowned. What does that even mean? The old man picked up a glass of water. There was a tiny crack at the bottom. He slowly poured water into it. At first, the glass looked full, but minute by minute, the water disappeared. The old man placed the empty glass in front of Ethan. Your wallet works exactly the same way. It's not one big hole. It's hundreds of tiny cracks. Ethan stayed silent because for the first time, someone had explained exactly what was happening to his life. Rule 1, respect every dollar. The old man reached into his pocket and placed one single dollar on the table. Then he asked, "Is this enough to make you rich?" Ethan laughed. "Of course not." The old man smiled. "Then is it small enough to waste?" Ethan didn't answer. The old man continued. "That's how most people think. They don't waste $1,000. They waste $1, 100 times." He pulled out a notebook and wrote one sentence. "Every dollar you ignore trains your mind to ignore money." Then he looked Ethan in the eyes. The wealthy don't respect money because they are rich. They become rich because they learned to respect every dollar before anyone else did. That sentence stayed in Ethan's mind long after he left the cafe, because suddenly, every coffee, every unnecessary online order, every impulse purchase looked different. They weren't just expenses. They were habits, and habits build futures or destroy them. End loop, part 1. As Ethan stood up to leave, he asked the old man, "So, if respecting every dollar is the first rule, What's the second? The old man smiled. It isn't about spending less. It's about understanding why you spend in the first place. Ethan looked confused. What do you mean? The old man picked up his coat, walked toward the door, and before disappearing into the crowd, he said one sentence that Ethan would never forget. People don't buy with logic. They buy with emotion. And in that moment, Ethan realized the real battle was never against money. It was against his own mind. The next morning, Ethan returned to the same coffee shop. This time, he wasn't there for coffee. He was there for answers. The old man was already sitting in the same corner, reading the same old book. Without looking up, he smiled. I knew you'd come back. Ethan pulled out the chair, sat down, and asked, What did you mean yesterday? You said, people don't buy with logic. They buy with emotion. The old man closed his book, then quietly asked, Have you ever gone shopping? For one thing, and returned home. With 5? Ethan smiled. More times than I can count. The old man nodded. Exactly. You didn't buy because you needed it. You bought it because someone made you feel like you needed it. Silence. The old man pointed toward a young couple sitting across the cafe. The woman picked up her phone. She smiled, then suddenly opened a shopping app. Within seconds, she bought something. Ethan looked confused. How did you know? She was going to buy something? The old man smiled. Because I wasn't watching her phone. I was watching her emotions. When people feel bored, they spend. When they feel lonely, they spend. When they feel stressed, they spend. And when they feel successful, they spend even more. Ethan slowly looked down. He remembered every online purchase he had made. Almost every one of them happened after a stressful day. Not because he needed anything, because he wanted to feel better. The old man leaned forward. Companies don't sell products. They sell feelings. They sell comfort. They sell status. They sell hope. They sell identity. And the moment you stop understanding your emotions, they start controlling your wallet. Ethan felt a chill. For years, he thought he had been making decisions. Now he realized many of those decisions were never really his. The old man reached into his pocket and placed 2 identical pens on the table. One was plain. The other had a luxury logo. They both write exactly the same. But one costs $3. The other, $300. Ethan picked them up. They're almost identical. The old man smiled. People rarely pay for the object. They pay for the story attached to it. That sentence hit Ethan harder than anything he'd heard before. He suddenly understood why people bought luxury brands, why advertisements worked, why influencers could sell almost anything. It wasn't logic. It was emotion. The old man looked at Ethan and quietly said, So here's the second rule. Rule 2. Never let your emotions make financial decisions. When you're angry, wait. When you're excited, wait. When you're sad, wait. The best financial decisions are almost never made in emotional moments. Ethan wrote the sentence in his notebook, then looked up. If I control my emotions, will I become rich? The old man laughed softly. No, but you'll stop becoming poorer. Without realizing it, Ethan smiled. For the first time, he wasn't learning how to make money. He was learning how to stop losing it. As they stood to leave, the old man looked at his watch. Tomorrow, I'll teach you. The habit. That steals more money than almost anything else. Ethan asked quickly, "What is it?" The old man smiled, walked away, and without turning back, said only 5 words. The price of looking successful. Ethan froze, because deep inside, he already knew exactly what that meant. The next morning, Ethan arrived, even earlier, not because he wanted coffee, not because he needed advice, but because, for the first time in years, someone had made him question the way he lived. The old man looked up, smiled, and asked one strange question. "Ethan, if I gave you $1 million today, would you spend it or protect it?" Ethan answered without thinking. "I'd protect it." The old man nodded. "Good. Now tell me, if you didn't have $1 million, would you still try to look like someone who does?" Ethan stayed silent. The old man noticed, then quietly pointed toward the street outside. A brand new luxury sports car pulled up beside the cafe. People immediately stopped walking. Some took pictures. Others stared in admiration. A young man stepped out, wearing expensive clothes, a luxury watch, designer sunglasses. He looked like success. 5 minutes later, the same man walked into the cafe. He ordered only the cheapest coffee. Then, his phone rang. Ethan couldn't help overhearing. "I'm sorry. I'll pay the loan next month. I just need more time." The man hung up, forced a smile, and walked away. The old man looked at Ethan. "Do you know what you just saw?" Ethan whispered. "A rich man?" The old man slowly shook his head. "No. You saw a man trying to look rich." Then he leaned forward and said something Ethan would never forget. "The fastest way to stay poor is to spend money trying to convince other people that you are rich." Silence, the words, hit Ethan hard. He thought about the expensive shoes he bought to impress coworkers, the latest phone he didn't need, the clothes bought on credit, the dinners he couldn't afford. None of them changed his life. They only changed how people saw him. For a few moments, the old man smiled. Most people buy things to impress people who aren't even thinking about them. Ethan looked down. It was true. He had spent years buying an image instead of building a future. The old man picked up a simple notebook. "This notebook cost me $5, he smiled, "but the ideas inside it made me millions." Then he looked Ethan in the eyes. "Poor people spend money to look successful. Wealthy people spend money to become successful. There is a difference, and that difference changes everything." Ethan slowly closed his eyes. For the first time, he understood. That wealth was often invisible. The people who looked rich were not always wealthy, and the people who were truly wealthy often looked completely ordinary. As they stood to leave, Ethan asked one last question. "So, if I stop wasting money, if I stop buying to impress people, what comes next?" The old man smiled, opened the cafe door, and before walking away, he said quietly, "Saving money is only the beginning. The real secret is learning how to make your money work harder than you do." Ethan stood frozen, because he realized everything he had learned so far was only preparing him for the biggest lesson of all. The next morning, the coffee shop was quiet. The old man wasn't reading this time. Instead, he placed 2 small glass jars on the table. One jar was completely empty. The other contained just a few coins. Ethan looked confused. "What am I supposed to see?" The old man smiled. Nothing. That's the problem. Most people only believe what they can see. He picked up the empty jar. This is how most people live. They work. They earn. They spend. And at the end of the month, they start again. He placed it down, then picked up the second jar. This one looks almost empty. But every week, someone quietly adds just a little more. No one notices. No one applauds. But years later, one jar stays empty, and the other changes a family's future. Ethan stared at the two jars. The difference wasn't money. It was patience. The old man leaned forward. People think wealth is created in one lucky moment. They're wrong. Wealth is built in ordinary days that nobody remembers. Then he opened his notebook and wrote another sentence. Money is a wonderful employee, but a terrible master. Ethan read it twice. I don't understand. The old man smiled. If you spend every dollar the moment you earn it, then you'll work for money for the rest of your life. But if you keep part of every dollar and allow it to grow, one day, money will start working for you. Silence filled the room. For years, Ethan believed saving money was enough. Now he realized saving was only the first step. Growing it was the real goal. The old man looked outside at a tiny tree growing through a crack in the sidewalk. When was the best time to plant that tree? Ethan smiled. Years ago. And the second best time? Ethan answered quietly. Today. The old man nodded. The same is true for your money. Don't wait for the perfect salary, the perfect business, the perfect opportunity. Start with what you have. Small beginnings create extraordinary endings. Ethan looked down, thinking about all the years he had spent waiting for someday. Then he whispered, I've wasted so much time. The old man gently shook his head. No, you only waste time when you refuse to learn from it. Ethan smiled. For the first time, he didn't feel guilty about his past. He felt excited about his future. But just as he was about to close his notebook, the old man stopped him. Wait, there is one final lesson. The lesson almost nobody follows, and it's the reason many people earn more, yet never become wealthy. The old man slowly closed the notebook, looked Ethan in the eyes, and quietly said, the more money people make, the more they try to upgrade their lifestyle instead of upgrading their future. Ethan felt his heartbeat grow faster because deep inside, he knew he had been doing exactly that. The cafe was almost empty. The morning sun slowly filled the room. The old man closed his notebook, looked at Ethan, and smiled. You've learned 4 lessons, but none of them will matter if you ignore the 5th. Ethan leaned forward. This is the one that changes everything. The old man reached into his pocket and placed 2 photographs on the table. The first showed a man driving expensive cars, wearing luxury watches, living in a huge house. The second showed an ordinary-looking family smiling together on the porch of a simple home. The old man asked, "Which one is rich?" Ethan immediately pointed to the first picture. The old man smiled, then quietly turned the photographs over. Behind the first picture were pages of debt, loans, credit cards, financial stress. Behind the second picture were investment statements, savings, businesses, freedom. Ethan looked shocked, The old man spoke softly. Never confuse appearance with wealth. Many people look rich, but sleep worried every night. The truly wealthy sleep peacefully because they own their future. Silence. Then came the final lesson. Rule 5. Protect your future before your lifestyle. Every time your income grows, don't let your lifestyle grow first. Let your future grow first. Invest. Save. Build. Then enjoy what's left. Because the goal isn't to look successful. The goal is to become impossible to break. The old man looked straight into Ethan's eyes, then asked, "Do you know what poor people buy when they earn more?" Ethan shook his head. "They buy bigger lifestyles. And do you know what wealthy people buy? Freedom." That single word echoed inside Ethan's mind. Freedom. Not cars, not clothes, not status. Freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to say no. Freedom to spend time with the people they love. At that moment, Ethan finally understood. Money was never the destination. Freedom was. Years later, 10 years passed. People often asked Ethan, "What changed your life? Was it a better job?" No. A successful business? No. A lucky opportunity? He smiled. No. It was the day I stopped asking, "How can I earn more?" and started asking, "Where is my money quietly disappearing?" That question changed everything. He still drank coffee. He still enjoyed life. But now, every dollar had a purpose. Every decision had intention. And slowly, without anyone noticing, his life changed. Not overnight, not through luck, but through thousands of tiny decisions. Well, remember, the question at the beginning, where does all your money go? Now you know, it doesn't disappear. And one day, it disappears. One unnoticed habit at a time. And wealth is built exactly the same way. One good habit at a time. Emotional CTA. So before this video ends, I want you to do one thing. Today, write down every single dollar you spend. Not to judge yourself, not to feel guilty, but to finally see the truth. Because the moment you become aware, your future begins to change. If this story made you think differently, share it with someone who always says, "I don't know where my money goes." And if you want more stories about money, psychology, business, and the hidden rules that quietly shape your life, subscribe, because the next story may not just change the way you think. It may change the way you live. Until next time, protect your mind, protect your money, and protect your future.